Do you know what? I think I'll leave that. Here are 19 reasons to read. Sell. Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I take you through the works of Stephen King in chronological order and give you 19 reasons to read all of his books. If that sounds like something you would like more of, click around my channel and don't forget to hit subscribe as well so you don't miss any videos in the future. In this video we've reached 2006 in our chronological King journey, which was a busy year for the guy. He released 2 novels that year and we're covering the first of them here today, Sell. In this video I'm going to give you 19 reasons to read this book, and I'll cluster any spoilers together at the end and give you warning before those spoilers arrive. So if you haven't read this one and you need to drop out before the end, you can do that, but still get some of the juicy reasons to read this frankly odd little book. That sound good? Okay, let's jump into it. Here are 19 reasons to read Sell. Phones on silent, please. So it's kind of interesting that this was the first of 2 books in the calendar year of 2006, because it was only a couple of years before this that King had kind of hinted at retiring, or at least said he was going to stop putting out a book a year. But in the period between him saying that and Sell coming out, he put out Wars of the Calla in 2003, Song of Susanna and The Dark Tower in 2004, The Colorado Kid and his non-fiction book Faithful in 2005, and then Sell and later Lisey's Story in 2006. So, not really retiring. And Sell was particularly interesting because it was primed as a return to horror, which a lot of people were quite excited about. In fact, the horror leanings of this one are hinted at right from the dedication page of this book. This one goes out to George A. Romero and Richard Matheson. Okay, so we've got the word horror popping around in this and 2 suitably spooky dedications. Might as well jump into the hook of it, which is a delightfully simple one. One normal day, people are going about their lives, chatting on the phone, all of that kind of stuff, when some mysterious signal called the pulse goes out through the entire cell phone network across the world, and anybody who hears it instantly turns into a rage-filled madman killing machine, and they become these phoner zombies, kind of like 28 Days Later, but all pumped through their cell phones. So after the explosive nature of the pulse hitting and the carnage that follows, we bed down with a bunch of survivors as they try to walk north from Boston to Maine to track down the lead character's teenage son, who they are hoping has survived and not become a phoner. On the way, they have to dodge all of those other phoners and get into lots of scrapes and adventures as they make their way north. Basically, it's King doing post-apocalyptic zombie horror again, and with a little boomer warning about the dangers of mobile phones. Lovely. But just as the hook is pretty simple on this, the idea for it is also pretty simple. King was in New York and saw a woman in a fancy suit on her phone coming out of a hotel, and his brain naturally wondered, what would happen if that woman heard a signal on the phone right now that turned her into a maniac zombie killing thing? Obviously, the way his brain works, the book just kind of fell out of him. It really did fall out of him. The idea clearly struck something in King's brain, because from the idea hitting to this book going to the printers took just 10 months. That's pretty damn impressive. So far so good, right? Well, yeah. This book often appears on people's lists of worst or least favourite King books, and it's kind of easy to see why when you get into it. The start is fantastic, but to be honest, a lot of this book is something of a mission to get through. Now that's not to say it's not worth reading. All of his books are worth reading, but just go into this knowing that Sell is not top tier King, okay? All that being said, the opening 30 pages or so are terrific, with some quite extreme levels of violence that just come out of nowhere. I remember the first time I read Sell, I kept having to flip back pages because this crazy stuff was happening that just wasn't happening a sentence before, and I had to check that I hadn't missed stuff. It really is just a chaotic bout of carnage to kick this one off. I actually think, personally, that rather than do a full novel, if King had kept that opening section as a short story, it would have been absolutely spectacular. So, there is plenty of familiar ground for constant readers in Cell, so even if you perhaps don't rank it as highly as some of the others, there's lots here that you will be comfortable with. We've obviously done Post-Apocalyptic King before with The Stand, and we've got technology turning against us like in Trucks. But then we've also got this man on a mission, journey of discovery type thing to go through, which we see obviously in The Stand as well, but also with The Body and Dreamcatcher as well. And then as the phoners develop and evolve, it's kind of like the Tommyknockers in how they just use up their bodies and try to shape shift and change to what they're actually trying to achieve. And yet, despite that, despite the potential for lots of recycled ideas and lots of recycled plots, actually King still manages to keep Cell pretty original and give it a pretty different hook to it, which is something you have to admire, even if you don't necessarily like the book as much as some of his other stuff. One thing I do like about this is how King is able to throw in all these unhinged classic Kingisms, but still stay very firmly rooted in the mid-noughts. It really does feel like a mid-noughts book, and King has always been great in moving with the times and setting his stories in the here and now that he's writing them in. But like I say, this one feels so mid-noughts. The flip phones, the post-9/11 Iraq war tensions, it's all there. I can basically see the bootcut jeans, the Avril Lavigne style belts, and the swishy emo haircuts. So keep an eye out for the character Ray Huizenga in this one, and not just because of how he impacts the plot. His name is quite an interesting story. So King took part in a charity auction whereby the winning bidder could name a character after themselves if they wanted to. So the person who won was a woman called Pam Alexander, who paid $25,000 for the privilege, and she then passed on the honour of naming the character to her brother, who was a massive King fan, and was called Ray Huizenga, as you probably guessed. So there you go. So the publishers, hearing the words King returns to horror, went big on this one, published more than 1 million copies, and invested in a quite hilarious phone marketing campaign. So they got people to pay $1.99 to download some Cell backgrounds for their phones, gave them access to a podcast about the making of the book, which I've tried to find online and can't, but also another thing I'm desperate to find online, so if you have any, let me know. They got access to a couple of King ringtones. So you had Stephen King saying, "It's okay, it's a normie calling," and "Beware, the next call you answer might be your last." Now apparently King wanted to just say, "Don't answer it, don't answer it, don't answer it," but marketing decided that that was not the best idea. So how did that campaign go? Well, the publisher's parent company ended up getting sued for unsolicited telephone marketing to the cost of $10 million. So yeah, it went great. So this one actually received a lot of positive reviews at the time, and I'd be very keen to hear how those publications rate Cell now. It kind of feels like Cell came out at the time when publications kind of started to get a bit scared about saying negative things about big artists for fear of not getting those advance copies to review next time, or not getting the interview with them next time they're around. It's just one of those things that has happened over the last 15 years or so. Okay, we're going into spoiler territory now, so if you haven't read Cell yet, then maybe it's time for you to hang up on this particular video. Ciao for now. Okay, let's jump back to that opening section and the quite staggering examples of violence that happen across just a few sentences. So we have a man bites a dog's ear off. We see a woman in a power suit who stabs herself in the ear with her freshly manicured nails before having her throat ripped out by a teenage girl. We have a duck boat full of tourists that just drives off into the front of a shop. And we have a young girl who smashes her head repeatedly against a lamppost shouting, "Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?" Yeah, it's wild. So for the rest of this book, we're bedding down with our trio of survivors, Clay, Tom and Alex, and it becomes much more episodic and centred around set pieces. But some of these set pieces are really good. The mass burning of phoners at the prep school, excellent. And the huge kaboom at the end of the book, also excellent. Those two in particular are just great examples of Popcorn King, and they're just really fun to get stuck into. Something less enjoyable but very well done is the quite shocking death of Alice, out of nowhere. So talking Alice, her full name is Alice Maxwell, which is the same name as one of the characters in 2021's Billy Summers. Now there's nothing out there to necessarily suggest that they are the same person, but you know, this tower has different levels, different wheres, different whens. There are other worlds than these. So a few more neat connections to other king stuff that I spotted. Well, we've got a bit of a list here. So there's a reference to Juniper Hill. People keep ending up in what they say are signal dead zones. Our survivors end up going to the unincorporated township of TR90. There's a nod to Charlie the Choo Choo, and obviously there's some 19s too. There is a plane with the wing number LN6409B, of course all of those numbers add up to 19, and Gaten Academy, the prep school where they take refuge for a bit, was founded in, wait for it, 1846. 1846 19. Talking Gaten Academy, its sole surviving adult, teacher, member of staff is the headmaster called Charles Arday, which is the same name as the founder of Hard Case Crime, with whom King released The Colorado Kid back in 2005, and which I reviewed in my last video. Nice little touch. Finally, something very close to home, for me at least, that does make me like this book a little bit more. So, on page 185, we have Clayton talking about a couple, says, like a couple of recently retired postmen hiking the Cotswolds, Clay thought, wherever they are. Well, Clay, or King, the Cotswolds, as it happens, are literally just down the road from me as I sit here, right now. In fact, assuming there are no tractors out on the road, I can be in the Cotswolds in about 40 minutes. So there we go. Is it a reason really to read Cell? Probably not, but I've said it now and it means I get to mention tractors. So lots of you out there will be very happy about that because none have driven past for a change. Isn't that nice? There we go, 19 reasons to read Cell. Do let me know what you think of this one in the comments. Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear. And if you enjoyed that video, there's plenty more where that one came from. Lots of 19 reasons to read and lots of specials as well, including a complete guide to the Dark Tower and also my Stephen King starter kit, which is a great video for you to check out if you're looking to decide where to get started with your King journey. Do check those out and make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any more in the future. Next up, we're staying in 2006 and what I think is one of King's absolute finest novels that he's written since the year 2000. So do make sure... Sorry. Make sure you save that. This should be fine, right? Hello?